What was your finest moment of revenge? When I was 11 years old, I was bullied by a 12-year-old boy. He would steal things from my lunch every day. I got sick of it and decided to do something about it. One day, I brought a super hot pepper in my lunch and pretended to be really excited about it. Sure enough, the boy comes over, snatches it from my hand and pops it in his mouth. He practically exploded in pain, writhing around the floor, unable to handle the heat. I calmly looked at him and told him that drinking a nice glass of cold water would help immensely. He did so. This promptly magnified the pain 100x. He never stole food from me again. I regret nothing. This is more petty revenge, but yeah. A few years back, my 15-year-old cousin was staying over at my place, which I shared with my boyfriend at the time. Her parents were on vacation in Cuba for a few weeks. While she was with us, we had to make all of her food. She couldn't cook and waited for me or my boyfriend to come home, otherwise she would only eat chips or popcorn. She wouldn't even make a sandwich. One day, she updated her Facebook status, which was a whiny complaint about how bored she was, she had free reign to go out, and how weird I was. I guess she forgot I have her on Facebook. It really pissed me off since I made all of her meals and tried my best to keep her company. That night, when I was making her a turkey sandwich, I took my revenge. I used the end slices of the bread loaf to build the sandwich and the bitter white part of a romaine lettuce leaf. I also put too much mayo on it. She ate that sandwich, and she had a look of annoyance on her face, but there was nothing she could do. This may seem small, but it was the most satisfying thing I have ever done. When I was in the 7th grade, I sat behind a jerk who hated me and enjoyed being annoying. Every single goddamn day he would lean back in his chair and hit the front of my desk, over and over again. If I was trying to write something, he would do it even harder. So one day I decided enough was enough, and in the middle of a lesson he started again. So I waited, and right as he was leaning his chair back fast, trying to knock my desk hard, I pulled it back. Without my desk behind him, his chair tipped right over and he hit the ground hard. I can still clearly remember him whispering, "You bitch," beneath the laughter of the whole class and the teacher yelling at him to get up. The look on his face was a mixture of shock, embarrassment, and pure rage as he looked up at me from the floor. Bastard never fucked with me again. A shitty repair shop in Moab, Utah messed up our car, which left us stranded in a nearby national park. We called and demanded they tow the vehicle in, and while they said they'd come get us, they never did. When we talked with park rangers, they were quite familiar with the shop, the biggest in town, and with a terrible reputation. We were on our honeymoon, and had more time on our hands than I imagine most travelers do. We went to the shop, demanded a full refund, and when they refused, we sat out front on the curb in our camp chairs for 2 days with homemade protest signs. I was overwhelmed with the support we got from locals, who honked and waved, stopped and chatted with us, and shared their own stories of horror. The owner called the cops on us, but the joke was on him. We'd already notified the police we'd be protesting, and were well within our rights in doing so. In the end, the shop owner refunded all our money, and left visibly distressed when we told him that even with the refund, we weren't sure we were ready to leave town. Eventually we did, but not before filing complaints every review site we could find. They'd already been booted from the Chamber of Commerce. We ended up becoming friends with an awesome local mechanic, and having a great story to tell. Justice was served, and without a tinge of guilt. My ex-fiancée walked out on me a week before the wedding. I later married a great girl, became much wealthier, and about to have a kid. Meanwhile, I heard she's still living in her parents' apartment, and is actively looking online for dates. The best revenge is living a better life without her, and that is what I did. When I was a kid, probably 4 or 5 years old, I was watching Dumbo with my neighbor. The elephants on parade part was scary as all hell to me back then, and I peed my pants. My neighbor told everyone in my class and would not stop calling me the pants peer for weeks. Finally, one day I slept over at her house and took a pair of her pants out her closet, put them on, and peed in them. I woke her up to show her, and that's the story of how I became the 2-time pants peer. I ground up laxatives and tainted all my kitchen fridge food with it to figure out which of my 7 roommates was eating all my food, while I survived off a secret stash in my mini-fridge. I found out who did it. Very, very quickly. Not me, but my mom. When I was 9, I'm 26 now. My parents went through a really rough divorce. Long story short, my dad had a very public and long-term affair with a prominent public figure in our area. We'll call her Debbie. Naturally, my mother was humiliated, but back then she was quite meek, unassuming, and not at all vindictive. She only did one thing to the woman that broke up my family. My mom is a nurse, and about 6 months after the divorce she was attending a medical conference our area. As she walks in the room, she saw that one of the panelists was the woman who slept with her husband. Shocked, but always in control, my mother calmly walked to the very front of the room and sat down silently in front of Debbie. Now, Debbie had been a family friend for over a decade, so my mom was intimately familiar with her upbringing and unfortunate issues. Remembering that she was an English Lit major in undergrad, my mom took out a red Sharpie and drew a very large A on the notebook that she brought to the conference. She turned it around and faced it directly at Debbie, never saying a word. Debbie was visibly agitated, and when it came time for her to speak, something amazing happened. She started ticking. You see, my mother also knew that Debbie had a condition that when under immense stress, despite significant speech therapy and experience in public speaking, she began to twitch and stutter. She twitched so much it impaired her speech, and she had to rush her portion. When she ended, my mother calmly shut her notebook, smiled at the woman, and walked out of the room. She never spoke a word. That was the last they saw of each other. My college roommate had a sketchy friend he would invite over. My textbook was stolen the weekend before my final. I went to the bookstore and found the book. I had note cards that I used as bookmarks still in the book. I texted my roommate's friend and made up a story that the bookstore was going to press charges unless he gave the money back. He confessed over the phone and told me to meet him at his place to get the money. When I got there, he was smoking a bong. After taking the money, I poured the bong over his head and told him to never come to my place ever again. When I was 16, I was heartbroken by a girl who basically decided to fuck someone else after we were in love, and I just used it as motivation to eat better and lose weight. I saw her a couple years later, and it looks like she gained as much as I lost, 40 kilograms. Felt so good. In high school, one of my best friends started dating my ex-boyfriend the day after we broke up, which happened to be my 16th birthday. So then and there I decided to ruin her sweet 16. I just wasn't sure how. Fast forward 3 months. She planned an extravagant birthday party and played hooky from school the Friday before the big party to prepare. This was my opportunity. I told everyone at school that she had gotten the flu and was postponing the party, hence why she wasn't in school. We were neighbors, so everyone bought it. The next day she got all dolled up, arrived at her sweet 16 party in a large rented ballroom only to spend the entire party with her mom and little sister. Not one person showed up. Looking back, it was terrible and mean, but to a 16-year-old girl I felt she broke sacred girl code, and that's never okay. I was out snowblowing the driveway one day. Some dude who is a friend of my sister's walks up to me and throws a snowball at me. He then gave that look like, "What are you gonna do about it, man?" and laughed, putting his hands up as if to go, "Oh, dude, do you not see this large snow-moving device I am pushing around?" Only took several seconds to completely coat him in snow, and the look of defeat on his face was glorious. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.